presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and tell you how we feel about the latest games. I'm Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Yakuza 0, a very interesting game from a series that's praised in Japan but doesn't really make a lot of headway over here in the West. But I will say straight off the bat, Yakuza 0 is a good game. This is an awesome game, but there's just a long list of people that this game isn't for. But the setup here is that Yakuza 0 is essentially the prequel setup to the famous numbered Japanese Yakuza games. It takes place in Tokyo and Osaka in the late 80s, and the story flips back and forth between playable main characters Goro and Kiryu, famous characters later on in the series, and this kind of just gives a background and a setup to who they are and how they got to where they are in the more current numbered games. Now, while the game graphically doesn't look absolutely amazing or anything, I do think it's worth mentioning that this just looks like a very Japanese game. Like, they nailed that Japanese game design style, but also the look and how they captured the streets of like Tokyo and Osaka. It's very, very interesting and detailed, and while it almost doesn't look completely next gen, it's still just visually appealing. During the day, it's bright and colorful, and at night, it's still bright and colorful, but it has more of a film noir tinge to it. And the fact that the game takes place in 1988 just makes everything so different. In Japan at that time, the game likes to really emphasize how it's an economic boom and things are really changing and things are going so well. So everyone is dressed to the nines, everything is shiny and glitzy and glam, and everybody has gold jewelry. It's just ridiculous and crazy and over the top, and I think that could be definitely said about the rest of the game. Even though the plot itself, which is the main focus of the game, it's very, very grounded and serious. But I think it's impressive. A plot that basically focuses on criminal and local politics, real estate land grabs, and like family and friendship drama, it just manages to pull you in quite easily. But I think this is where we need to make some notes. This is where it's going to scare some people away. The main focus of Yakuza 0 and all the Yakuza games is story first, gameplay second. There's a lot of dialogue here, a lot of story, a lot of exposition, a lot of getting to know the characters, and while I do think it is a really great story, if you're the type of gamer who skips cutscenes or just doesn't really care about the story, or even if you found yourself complaining about Metal Gear Solid 4's like hour-long cutscenes, Yakuza 0 is probably going to jam you up. You might actually find yourself a little bored. Also, if you're the other type of person who doesn't like playing Japanese games where you have to read all the subtitles, well, there's no English here, so yeah, there you go. But on the flip side, if you are okay with that, what you get here is a surprisingly interesting story. Thankfully, one that just starts from nothing. It starts from zero, like the title of the game. You're not thrust into the middle of a random Yakuza game, not knowing all the hours and hours and hours of story built upon things. Here you just start out as Kiryu, and you just learn who he is and in this world, and things just go from there. And I think that's worth mentioning because that makes this game really good for first-timers of the series. The main plot of the game itself is very serious most of the time, like I said, but the side quest stuff is really charming and special, and that's where the weird side of Yakuza really starts to show and explains to you basically why people love these weird, quirky games. There's so many different weird side quests to keep things varied. There's karaoke mini games, there's sneaking around porn magazines, talking to weird people, bowling, dancing, playing arcade games at the arcade. There's just so many different things to do that all just have a weird sense of humor to them, from the actual fun execution to actually how the dialogue is written, because some of it is just so wacky and weird, but it's all delivered through some really great voice acting. The Yakuza games always cast top talent from Japan, like famous Japanese actors, and it shows here. While I can't understand what they're saying, they're doing it they're pulling it off pretty convincingly, you know? Like, I get it. Just know, though, it is a very, very Japanese game with all those weird quirks included. So if you find yourself not really into a lot of JRPGs or other Japanese-style games, Yakuza is definitely no different. I'm not gonna pull any punches there. This game is very much a game, if that makes sense, and that can be said about the combat. You've noticed I didn't really talk about it so much because there's not a lot of it, but what is there, it's fun. It's basic, it's very simple, but it's like a fun brawler beat-em-up style that really harkens back to older games like Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, stuff like that, where you're just in the streets and you need to beat up dudes. That's it. It's still compelling enough to keep you interested, though, because there are 3 different switchable on-the-fly attack styles. There's a regular street brawler, there's like a rage mode that's very attack-heavy, and then there's also Rush, the fast and quick mode to speed around. The second playable character, Goro, gets his own style where he just busts out a baseball bat like a real gangster. And while it feels a little button mashy, there is a lot of strategy to actually building up your heat level, which is the more you attack and the less you get hit, the more you have access to spend this meter and use special attacks, which make a higher combo and let you earn out more money from a fight. You're basically punching money out of people, and I love it. The fighting isn't perfect anyway. Sometimes the camera is a mess, and the lock-on just isn't really a thing. It looks really simple and basic on a surface level, and it mostly is, but there's a little bit of depth to it there that makes it seem like some finesse is required, and not only that, but by earning money. Money is essentially money you spend in the game, but it's also your experience points, and you can dump that money into leveling up and learning new moves moves and strengthening your character. And it's got a pretty good sense of progression. It's just not the main focus of the game. There are many times where you're not going to fight a person for quite a while. And like I said, that's fine, at least for me, as someone who's enjoying the game and enjoying the story, I can keep with that. But it's very much a Japanese crime soap opera that you're going to be following along. So, like I said, definitely not for everyone. But if you have been curious about the series in the past, maybe you've seen some of the PS3 games or seen footage of the newer ones from Japan, this one, Yakuza 0, is definitely good for first-timers in that regard. So I did enjoy my time with Yakuza 0 very, very much. This thing will take you at least 30 to 40 hours to complete the story while playing around with some side quests. And if you are into this type of game, I think you're going to love it. If you're not, I would say maybe give it a chance. Don't run out and go buy it right now. But there is something special here I think most gamers can find. But you just need to be willing to deal with some stuff that, takes you out of your comfort zone in terms of games you play. But by now, you guys probably know how a before you buy works. I'll give you the pros, the cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there. And now I definitely want to hear yours. If you're a huge fan of the series, I want to know how you feel about this one. The story, I think, here is the strongest, but I also want to know if you've never touched any of these games and you've just seen this video, how do you feel about it? Is this turning you off or is this convincing you? Because I feel like I've given you guys a bit of both in terms of why you would love it or why you would absolutely hate it. So let me know anything you want about Yakuza 0 down in the comments. I'll be there answering your questions, and I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. You guys also probably know the drill by now. Clicking the like button helps us out, and if you are new, clicking that circle button and subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos every single day. I'm actually very tired. I'm gonna go to bed now. I've played too many games. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.